Thank you for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. Today, this is not the future I signed up for. Stay tuned. Yeah, I've always been. It's weird. I'm not a horror movie guy at all, but I definitely I've always appreciated the Evil Dead movies. It's kind of, and the Ash vs. Evil Dead series I thought was awesome too.
Well, it's not too late. You can always become a horror movie guy.
It's just not in my DNA, man.
I'd be happy to host a film festival someday
to make sure that cures me of my sleeping habit.
Yes, yeah, totally, and that's how you know it works.
Yes, exactly. The success has been done when you haven't slept in a few months and you have to crouch in the corner covered with a blanket the whole time.
Hey, you know what? It's the joy of confronting your fears and persevering.
Yeah, how'd that work out for the people in the movie? I'm wondering. Those guys really overcame.
Yes. Well, speaking of confronting one's fears, that brings us to today's topic.
Oh my God, what is the topic today, Brian?
I didn't sign up for this.
Well, actually, I think the technical answer is this is not the future I signed up for.
Oh, yes. This is, yeah, well, I was just more succinct.
I know, it's more, but here's the thing I would say is like, I was signing up for like, dude, it's going to be like Bill and Ted at the end of Bill and Ted 2. It's going to be a world of just endless like rock and roll and partying, and everyone's going to be awesome, and everyone's going to be cool with each other, and we're just going to rock.
Yeah, like the band Slaughter is going to break into the television broadcast station.
Yeah.
And rock out.
And rock. And everyone's going to have fun and rock. And and even the cops will go, you know what, this is cool, let's rock, and everyone's just going to rock.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that, it was.
There's risks. I mean, like, while all the wives of your small town are having a softball game, Scorpions tour bus
roll into town,
right, and start rocking.
What can happen?
Yep. Time to grab the pitchforks.
The thing we all understand is any problem caused by rocking can be solved by rocking.
Yes,
we learned that in the 80s. You know what
I mean?
And
any problem not caused by rocking can also be solved by rocking.
Exactly. Rocking is kind of the panacea of the entire modern world.
It's evergreen.
It is, exactly, for sure. Except for about a 20-year window between like 1993 and like 2013. It's like that window when rocking didn't quite have the effect. It was not like, the effects may vary. They put on a bottle.
Rocking became deregulated.
Not of monetary value from the year 1993 like 2013. That's
yes. Although I've got to give Canada credit. There was some great stuff in the late aughts.
Oh, I mean Canadian bands, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Canadian bands are like famous for being awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean, even Annihilator is a great band,
right? Or like the most well-known power trio from Canada, Triumph.
Oh my God, that was a change-up, and the batter swung and missed. They thought for sure it was going to be a fastball. By the way, the favorite sport of Geddy Lee of Rush,
baseball,
inarguably the greatest power trio of all time. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think you can argue that. Canadian or not, eh?
Yes, but Triumph fought the good fight.
No, they did.
Till it was over.
They did. They fought the good fight, that's for sure. And they believed in the magic power.
That's how they did it.
That's how they did it. Rick Emmett.
They really laid it on the line.
Actually, I got to say, Triumph's an awesome band, man.
Totally an awesome band.
Actually, that Triumph documentary was just on like Access TV the other day.
What?
So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's just great. And he's an amazing guitar player. Actually, he's like so multifaceted player. It's insane.
And the drummer could sing too.
Yeah, that band was great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess technically they still exist in some form or fashion, but they just don't ever play.
Yeah.
So they're like doing the Jimmy Page remastering stuff thing. That's kind of where they're at.
I'm surprised they're not doing the Bryan Adams remastering stuff.
Bryan Adams is actually awesome, dude. I've always been a fan of Bryan Adams.
I think Bryan Adams is great.
Yeah.
I'm staying with the Canada theme.
I will. Speaking of futures I didn't ask for, I remember back in like early 2000s, I was at a gym working out, and I remember I heard some just lame unch song going on in the background. Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, nothing can change how you feel for me. I was like, wait, is that? It was a girl singing it. And like, this is Bryan Adams, but it's like a weird dance club remix like thing of Bryan Adams' Heaven. It was so strange. I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, what is this? It was like, unch. This is heaven.
I was like, run to you.
I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like so horrified. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. You know what I mean? And it's so weird. I think that's the moment, even though at that time I was only like 23 years old. I was like, this isn't for me. Something about the world right now is not for me anymore. I don't know what happened. I was only in my 20s at the time, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. So that's a first sign. That was the first shot across the bow of the future I didn't sign up for.
Well, hey, we live in the age of the internet. If someone likes that song enough, they might seek out the original recording.
Oh God, that's giving people an awful lot of credit, Ryan.
Hey, I'm trying, man.
Yeah, no, hey, I appreciate your glass half full approach.
A little optimism from the horror movie guy.
Exactly. Yeah, he's optimistic this all in terribly. Ha ha ha. No, I don't know, man. I think the first sign of what was to come was MySpace. I think, like when MySpace first hit, I thought this is pretty cool actually, because
I loved MySpace.
A lot of bands got on that. They started putting up other songs in their bio. It was a good way to find out about bands. A good way for people to find out about your music.
Yep.
It was really great. And then the social media part of it, was kind of give or take. I didn't care about that too much, but it's a good way for musicians to get their music out. And I think for that reason, MySpace was always. I remember when Facebook came out, feeling like MySpace is so far superior to Facebook.
Yeah, I definitely had because you could decorate your page on MySpace and then put up a bunch of like a playlist, right?
Yeah.
So as a creative expression, such as it was, I like the idea of I'm going to change up the way my page looks every now and then and post different playlists.
Yeah, and you can get a sense
people discover
what that person's inner world is like, what their vibe is. You know what I mean? And
right.
that was so much cooler than Facebook. Facebook, I just felt was kind of plain Jane. Didn't really, all the features were lame. There was nothing. You couldn't like embed a music player on that kind of.
Facebook it's the McDonald's hamburger.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it way before I really knew what it was, because I was really convinced. I have a long history, by the way, of not calling things correctly when it comes to what the future's or where the future's going. I remember my first response when someone told me about YouTube for the first time, like 2006. I was like going, so it's like a website where you post your home movies? Like, who the hell would watch that? I only watch my own home. I'm not watching someone else's home movies. Of course not. That's lame. What a terrible idea. That was literally my response to YouTube when I first found out about it. So, and then, MySpace and Facebook, like, well, MySpace is so much better than Facebook. Facebook sucks. And then,
yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean? It's long.
I agree with the Facebook thing. Facebook was recommended to me by some not terribly creative people I know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's clearly been the one that's won. I think, if I'm not mistaken, MySpace does still exist in some form or fashion. It's just
which means all the data you had on your MySpace page is owned by whoever owns
Google. I'm
MySpace.
thinking it's probably Google or something, right? That owns that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's that was my first like not calling it right, and then YouTube is another not calling it right sort of thing. And I think I have that. Have you ever seen that? Oh, you're not a big Seinfeld guy, but there's an episode of Seinfeld where George decides to do the opposite. Right. And,
opposite day. I've heard of it.
And I keep thinking like if my instincts are always wrong, so I just do the opposite.
I'll give Seinfeld credit in that I don't really like the show, but I'm aware of things like Festivus and Opposite Day.
Yeah, because they permeated culture.
It permeated culture, right?
Yeah,
totally.
exactly.
So I got to give him credit for that, I guess.
I love Seinfeld. I unabashedly love Seinfeld.
I feel like Seinfeld's kind of like the Facebook of comedy.
No, he's so good. Jerry Seinfeld's such a great comedian, dude. He's awesome. And he does it all without dropping a single F-bomb. It's amazing to me. Like,
a well-placed F-bomb can be very effective.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of comedians lean too heavy into that, too. And that's like the part of their shtick. He just has like interesting things to say that are very relatable, very human. I love that he's an overthinker, which kind of reminds me of myself a little bit. So it's like one of those
What's
things.
What's the deal with that?
Yeah, exactly. So I dig that. Like taking a tiny thing and like really blowing up and really analyzing something that's completely innocuous is very appealing to me. I don't know why. It's like, why is there only 8 blueberries in this muffin? It should be more than that. It's like and really obsessing.
What are the odds that
really obsessing about it? You know what I mean?
Nice.
But I'm thinking this as a musician, coming up from a musician's standpoint, we'll look at guitars separately, like what happened to the guitar gear, but then let's look at like the just culture generally. And I think as a musician, one thing that happened is with technological advances, like even iTunes and stuff like that, when music became available to be shared as files, that pretty much almost immediately got rid of the financial aspect of the record labels and industry. That kind of destroyed it for the most part. I mean, it still exists, but it's like not even close to what it once was.
Yeah, it used to be that you would go on tour so people would see you and then go buy your
record.
album,
Yeah.
right? Now you hope people buy your album so that they'll come see you on tour so
Yep.
you can sell them merchandise and stuff.
It
It's
basically
totally flipped around.
destroyed that. And then that means that as musicians, the labels have either no budgets or just going out of business, or they have tiny budgets, so you end up doing way more of the work yourself.
Yep.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not the way it was. Back in the day, if you got signed to a record label, like a legit record label, you'd have $3 million advance. You'd be able to like, have tour support. You could go out there and they would give you an opportunity to like build a career. Yes, they're going to destroy you on the financial side. They're going to take all your money on the other hand.
I know keyword is advance.
Yes, exactly. They're going to get all that money recouped, and then you're going to get a royalty off of what you're selling once that money's recouped, assuming you sell enough records. But if you sell enough records, you can make a serious amount of money, and they'll bankroll the while you're building your career. Like when you're still like a relatively unknown band, you can go tour with whoever for a year, play to their audience, build up your fan base, and then by the next record you're going to sell way more, and you're going to be able to kind of really maybe 3-4 records in renegotiate your deal, get a better deal. That was a pathway that existed at one point up till about the early 90s.
Yep.
And then once that went away, it became like, okay, the labels have no money. So you're going to have to, you get the minimal budget. They're not going to have any tour support. You have to become your own, not only booking agent, but you have to be able to be your own social media team. You have to be your own marketing department. You have to pay for and organize your rehearsals and recording sessions. You have to organize the, if you have a label, the label at least takes care of the pressing and release of the record. If not, you got to do all that too. So you basically end up having to become, a six-headed entrepreneur that you didn't. You and I just wanted to play guitar and rock.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Well, and to add to what you're saying, already all the money was concentrated into the top like 1 or 2% of artists. Now it's all concentrated probably. I'm just pulling these numbers out of the air, but it's concentrated into like fractions of a percentage, I bet.
Yeah, everything. Well, there's still the top handful of artists who are making a ton of money. Well, that ton of money, it's still fractional compared to what it was. It's not like what it was, but the money that's out there is going towards it. Which is why when Taylor Swift did the thing where she was kind of standing up for the rest of the artists about getting paid more for like Spotify and that stuff, that was really valuable because she's one of the few people that has enough of gravitas to do that.
Hey, I've been an honorary Swiftie ever since.
Oh, dude, I've liked Taylor Swift for my daughter first discovered her years and years ago. You know what's crazy? As long as Taylor Swift's been around, she's only like just now turned 30. It's so
that's
weird.
Crazy.
It's so weird, man.
It is weird.
I remember there's a commercial I saw where she's like ordering a white wine. I'm like, you can't. Oh, wait. No, yeah, you're 30. Okay. I still think of her as being like a 17-year-old or something like that. It's so weird. But then she's been around forever, too. It's a strange thing. It's almost like she's an elf from Lord of the Rings.
Dude, it's like how I feel like Fallout Boy is a new band.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Right? Or
celebrating their 25th anniversary of their release.
Right, or Paramore is a new band.
Yeah, I know. A lot of these, Avenged Sevenfold, to people, if you talk to people, they say that's a new band. Like, no, they came out like in 98 or something. They've been around like 25 years.
Right. Dude, they should be fully avenged by now.
Yes, exactly. I don't think they are.
What? They're not?
They're only like fivefold at this point. They still have a couple more. They've got more avenged to get. They've not leveled
still
up.
More. They've
not leveled up to the
still more
level.
vengeance.
Yeah, exactly.
More vengeance left for them.
But the long story short is that when we were kids and we first dreamed about being musicians, it was not you have to be like a person who wears 10 hats and do all the work. And if you're really lucky, you can make like enough money to be like a kindergarten teacher.
Right. Well, I think as private guitar instructors, I think we do better than kindergarten.
No, we do, but it's like that. That was one of those things like,
thing.
Your dream is when you're a kid is like, okay, we're going to get signed and we're going to be able to go and we're going to fly private jets like Motley Crue and we're going to, have a big pyro show and we're going to, that's kind of what you're dreaming of. And then you realize that the more prosaic day-to-day stuff is really like the reality of it. And even more so now, it's very DIY. Even if you're a band with a label, it's very DIY still.
Oh, yeah.
There's nobody with enough cash to throw around, I look at some of these labels when I actually get into the weeds of like who's at the label. There's like 15 people that work at the whole label.
Sure.
I'm like, and I'm impressed that they can even keep 15 people employed at that label because it's like who buys. I see the Spotify things that I get for my Scott Allen Project stuff, and it's like, I wouldn't be able to support a label on that. How in the hell are they with even with an artist selling way more than me? I don't understand how you could support that because they're talking fractions of a penny for every stream. You have to get millions and millions and millions and millions of streams to even add up to a few dollars. You know what I mean? It's like ridiculous how it works. And that's another thing that back when we were kids, you'd buy a record or you buy a CD or you buy a tape or something. That's how you got music. You know what I mean? Radio stations would play it, you see a band live, and you go buy the record or something like that. Now that doesn't happen anymore either. It's really no financial. There's really no financial way for those bands to actually sell their music and recoup the money it costs to make it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which strikes me as kind of unsustainable. Why would artists, and then you hear more and more like established artists saying, I'm not going to put out any more music, because I can see why. Why would you spend $40,000 to get this thing done and then put it out to not make any money? It's.
I wonder if that's why King Diamond hasn't released the album they've been talking about since before the pandemic.
I don't know. I think it's a combination that they haven't finished writing it. And I think it's that, and then I think there's some label issues going on with them. Like they're not sure what label it's going to be. And if you notice, a lot of these bands will like change labels from record to record now, because they'll get a deal and they'll just put the record out that, and then they'll get a better deal and they'll change to another label and stuff. And I think that's a sign of how everybody's struggling. If there's a band with any kind of name recognition, they're going to get an opportunity to have a deal. And if you're not, then you're just, good luck, kid. Build yourself up until you've got a name, and then we'll come and sign you and take half your money. That's basically it.
Yeah. Well, dude, you remember at NAMM a few years ago, you and I were talking about, we were having this conversation, and, like it used to be, you'd go into the guitar shop and everybody working in the guitar shop, whether they were teaching or behind the counter, they were just getting by until their band took off.
Guitar Center's still like that. Hey man, none of this is going to matter. My punk band's huge.
Dude, I hear that our local Guitar Center has maybe 3 staff members now.
I'm not. Well, there's 2. There's one in Roseville. There's one in Sacramento.
That's too bad.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just, that's all changed.
Oh, no, I just meant that's too bad that there's a Guitar Center anywhere.
You know what? It's funny. That's weird. That's like a zombie company, though, because apparently they've been in bankruptcy for like decades now, and then they're owned by Bain Capital, which is like a big, not trust fund, but a big, what am I trying to think? Hedge fund.
Hedge fund.
Yeah,
right.
and they basically just are a loss for them. They can write off every year.
Just remember, Bain is a Batman villain.
Yep. Also,
he's a bad guy.
Run by Mitt Romney. He's on their board. So, which is, I know exactly. So, but that's who that is.
See all the self-control I'm using over here? Lots of it.
But I'm just saying that's like the people that own Guitar Center. And Guitar Center it's like, I don't understand how you keep a business open that just loses money every year, but all right.
Well, tax write-off for the rest of it. I don't know.
For whatever
who knows?
Reason. I think I've talked to some people about this, and what it comes down to is I think it just comes down to like they've got like a bunch of contracts into the future that they have to fulfill. They couldn't full without like, having some crushing downstream impacts. So they're just going to keep it open until like those contracts are done. And I don't know. It's weird. I mean, you would think that, okay, if with Guitar, because I've had this conversation before, if Guitar Center goes away, does that mean that all the mom and pops are not going to get lifted up because they're the only game in town? And I don't know that that's necessarily true either. I have a feeling that it's just going to go all online. It's just going to be Sweetwater, Musician's Friend, Amazon.
Well, I think out of all of, like, Sweetwater's done a great job with their online stuff. I definitely think but they can't carry everything.
They carry damn near everything, though. I'll tell you, they got tons. Of stuff.
Can you imagine ordering a pack of strings and like waiting for it?
I know that seems insane.
Right? If you're out there practicing and you break a string, do you want to go to Amazon and order it?
Yeah,
even if you have to wait a day, or you could drive to your local music shop and grab a pack and be back playing right away.
Yeah, it's true.
So and while you're there, while you're at Skips, sign up for lessons with me. And buy yourself a pack of strings, take a look at some guitars, get a tip about that. So I think there's a place for that.
No, I agree. It's like a bookstore. There's always gonna be bookstores. You know what I mean? But I think that the centralness of our lives is not going to be there. I think it's
very true.
It's going to be niche-y stuff, and I think that the people on margins, people who just do very beginner instruments and lessons and rentals, are going to do great, and people who are on the other end, like the super high-end boutique, but they only have like appointment only kind of thing, are going to do great. Right. I think those are. Well,
there's also repairs and stuff, right? Like you don't need to take your book in for an adjustment.
Like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that'd be part of like the repair aspect of the place that does lessons in rentals and stuff like that. And then you have absolutely. Like the super boutique-y place that only sells like Suhr and Bogner amps and stuff like that.
That sounds awesome. I want to go there.
Like Chicago Music Exchange kind of thing, or
like Music Zoo.
Yeah, exactly. Those kind of places. Tillman. Yeah, exactly. But that's the two. It's almost like the class divide. Like there's the very rich in the sort of bottom end. There's nothing much in the middle. And a lot of times those middle stores. And I used to work at one of those called Northridge Music. It was kind of a middle-sized store. It was like not tiny, but and it still carried Mesa Boogie and Marshall and Fender and Gibson and all that stuff. Tom Anderson, and for a short period of time, Godin and Taylor guitars. They had really high-end stuff, but a mix. That kind of middle ground place. I think just kind of got X'd out of the market, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it's crazy. So that, again, a music store is something that was a big part of our childhood and our teenage years, is going to the music store and meeting up with other musicians and jamming and checking out gear. That's also kind of gone away. That isn't really a thing anymore. Not the way it was, not even close, you know what I mean? So I think that aspect of it is kind of a thing that we didn't sign up for. And I think
no doubt.
The biggest one, though, I think before we move over and talk about like the music side of this and the guitar side,
this is a rich topic though.
Is the social media side of it, and we've talked a little bit about here and there on this podcast about how much neither of us were terribly excited about, like, oh, let's do Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or Twitter, that kind of thing. And it's weird. I'm sure anybody under 20 is like, what are you talking about? This is the greatest thing ever. But
or it's always been there.
Yeah, it's always been there. Exactly. People who are like in their 40s, though, we grew up without that stuff, and it was not readily apparent to us why it was important, if that makes sense. And it's one of those things that's like, oh man, not to even go straight to the musician side of it, just culturally, like I just don't find it to be terribly interesting or important. That's just my old mid 40s.
Yeah, well, I definitely. I mean, I had a Facebook page years ago. But once it just became people arguing about stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Or grandparents trying to chop in. Hey, what are you guys talking about here?
Or here's a picture of what I ate for lunch.
Yeah, that's the Instagram thing, and I don't get that either. Like the Instagram girlfriend thing. Like, hey, we're going to travel around and take pictures of my girlfriend in different places, and because she's going to be a model or something. It's like
generally, I think there's a big difference between. I want people to hear our music and be aware of, our individual teaching practices and, be aware of what we do.
Yeah.
But, neither one of us is peacocking around for external validation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a hindrance. It's a real negative towards your ability to use social media to your advantage if you don't really want to have like any undue. And also for me, when I'm like using any of the social media platforms, if I don't have anything to say, I don't say anything. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I've got nothing important to say. I'm not going to just trump up something stupid just to say something, because I got to I got to post at least twice a week. So I got to do, it's like you talk to different people who they'll coach you about like, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. And I'm like, I just don't want to do that. You know what I mean? It's, and I know it's a detriment to marketing or whatever it is, whether it be a teaching practice or a new album or whatever, or a new DVD or whatever it might be. I just kind of feel like, it just sucks, man. I don't want to do it.
I can see that why it would behoove a person to kind of backlog.
Yeah.
Plan ahead. I'm going to post this, then I'm going to post this, and I'm going to post this for the next month or two.
Yeah. So you don't have to really think you have too much brain power. But then they'll tell you like, okay, but you have to interact with people, and you need the best thing to do is to start making comment on threads and then getting interactions with people. I'm like, that's exactly the last thing I want to do. That does sound kind of messed up, and it's not because I think I'm better than somebody else. That's not it at all. It's just that, having long interactions with people I don't know about things I don't care about does not sound like a great way to spend my time.
I mean, I like the convenience on Instagram of being able to heart something.
Yeah, that's great.
That's really great because then someone knows, hey, I saw that. That's awesome. Bink. Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah. Without having to get into a whole philosophical discussion or stuff like that. And,
yeah, totally, man. I'm definitely not interested in. Well, I'm really not too interested in debating anyone ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, especially about a lot of what social media is like politics debates, which kind of suck. But
I want to stay away from all that.
Even music debates, you'll say like, I really love, whoever Queensryche. Well, that Jeff Tate's not Queensryche. It's like,
Well, and see what's great with the podcast is that you and I are 1,000% correct.
That's
about
true.
Everything all the time.
I think that's pretty quantifiable, actually.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Now, that being said, let's go to the positive sides of social media. So one of which is things like podcasts. We can actually have platforms for something like a podcast to get out to the world.
Absolutely.
Gives us a lot of marketing opportunities for our teaching practices, for our music, for our releases and stuff like that. That's something that didn't exist before. To a degree, it levels the playing field from a marketing perspective. For people who are businesses, if you're a small business or something like that, you can actually reach a lot of people if you know how to use social media to your advantage. So that's a really good advantage. That's a great thing about the modern world. That's something that you and I could not even imagine when we were kids. Is that there's the idea of the internet didn't exist when we were kids.
Yeah, and you know what? I had a buddy of mine who handles social media for a few different people, right? Like he gets paid to do it.
Yep.
Come over to the studio and help me out with some stuff that's going to go up on, some upcoming social media pages I'll be launching. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is, if you don't know how to do it, you can, like playing guitar, for example, you can hire someone to show you how.
Yeah.
Social media is no different.
Yeah, and it's a great platform to sort of be able to do marketing if you know how to use it. There's a lot of things it affords you opportunity, no matter what your resources are, to really be seen by people, which is good.
Yeah, it democratizes things. Thanks for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Please make sure to mash that like button and subscribe. Now, back to what we signed up for.
The downside, though, is that because of the algorithms that drive all social media platforms, then the stuff that's controversial tends to jump to the top. If you have some kind of crazy, wacky, kooky, extreme thing that you do or you say, that's going to lead you to get more likes or views because of the way the platforms work, which is also unfortunate for our culture. You know that's,
totally.
You know,
so it promotes being outrageous, right?
Exactly, like in good ways and horrible ways too. You know what I mean? It's even stuff like the TikTok challenges. Like some kid, I guess, just died from doing some Benadryl TikTok challenge.
Oh my god!
You know what I mean? It's like that kind of dumbass stuff like that. Like, oh, let's see how many times you can get hit in the head with a pineapple or whatever. You know, it's like something stupid, and it also encourages that. But I mean, I guess the argument could be made though that it's just a tool. Like any other tool, like a hammer could be a weapon or it could be something to build something. You know what I mean? It's like it depends on what you do with it. I guess
it's like a pineapple.
It's like a pineapple.
It could be
yeah,
a delicious, or it can cause a concussion.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I guess there is some percentage of people a year who die from getting hit in the head in pineapples.
I was going to say falling from the tree. Yeah, right. So their natural habitat.
I believe that's actually more people die from getting hit in the head with pineapples than sharks every week. Not every week, every year. So I believe that's true. So
now, how many sharks die from pineapple?
That's really the unlucky shark right there.
That's what I want to.
There's very few pineapple trees hanging over the ocean. You know what I mean?
You know, if it was just over the ledge of an island,
exactly.
Right?
Sharks like sitting around. This seems like a good place to hang out.
It's like, I think I'd murder a couple seals. Bonk.
Jammy. Oh man, Jimmy got taken out by the damn pineapples. Gotta watch out for those things.
No doubt.
So anyway, I think it's like anything else. There's good and bad with that. You know what I mean? And then I don't know. I don't want to come off as like an old man yelling at clouds. It's just that it's not at all what I envisioned. Like what a professional career as a musician was going to be having to take on. I've got to be a video editor and a marketer and a website designer and a pro engineer and a podcast host and an instructor and a performer and a clinician and and a songwriter. I thought like maybe 4 of those jobs I'd have to do.
Right. Yeah. As opposed I thought more of the jobs that I do would be playing guitar.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel in a lot of ways a lot of envy for some of the guys who are like a little bit older than us who are able to be a part of that.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Because you and I we talked about in the first podcast, like we were just a little bit too late. We came to the party about 7-8 years too late.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
If we had been born 10 years earlier.
Yeah, exactly. We'd be way older now. But
we would be, but those ensuing years.
Yeah, it's true.
We would have been headlining the Budokan.
But then we would have had to go underground for the entirety of the 90s. I don't know.
If I had a good run in the 80s, I'd be okay.
Yeah, if you had you wouldn't want to be like Pretty Boy Floyd or something like that.
Right, or like Bangalore Choir.
Tora or something like that. Like, okay, I got to be a contractor now.
Got to give it to Andy Timmons.
Oh, Andy, but I think Andy's a brilliant player.
He's an elite player.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and he's great. But like, he does not have the I Want to Rock thing at all anymore. He's totally become this like bluesy, fusiony sort of thing, and that bums me out. So when I listen to like a Killer Danger tune, and he's just shredding. I'm like, yeah, that's all, dude. You should do that. You should shred. You know what I mean? And
I can't see Andy Timmons like releasing like an instrumental version of Sportin' a Woody.
That's Dangerous Toys though.
Oh crap. Well, so I super can't see Andy Timmons.
No, come on, man. That. Danger did really highbrow stuff like I Slipped Her the Big One. That was Danger. They didn't do some lowbrow Sportin' a Woody thing.
I stand corrected.
Those are bastions of dignity and class in the late 80s. Come on.
Sorry, I got my phallic reference songs mixed up. Yeah.
Come on, man. Bang, bang. That's poetry.
Yes.
No, Ted, if you're out there, man, you guys are awesome. I love Danger. I'm not
super awesome.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, they've got a new guitar player that they got Rob Marcello, who's the guy that they picked up later on. And there's another band I just recently discovered called the Defiance, which is their second singer, the guy that replaced Ted Pulley, and the guitar player who replaced Danny Timmons. Band that they got a record out on Frontiers. It's pretty cool. It's called the Defiance.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. It's great stuff. Killer player. I mean, Rob Marcello is a monster player. In fact, actually, when Shotgun Messiah did a little run of dates in Europe like a couple years ago, he was the guitar player.
Dude, Shotgun Messiah is a great band.
He replaced Harry Cody for that.
Really?
That shows you he replaced Andy Timmons and Harry Cody. That shows you how much that guy's got legit chops.
That's a resume, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a great guitar player. Anyway, so Danger Danger is awesome. That's all I say.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly known for the highbrow lyrics, though. That's the one thing I would say. You know what I mean?
Well, music was fun.
It was, and I think that was the thing at the time. Music was all about having fun, especially the bands like that was like a party time. It was party, you know. And I think there's a place for that. There's a place for serious bands. There's a place for like epic bands. Yeah. There's a place for
it was like Wayne's World. It's party time.
It's
excellent.
True. It's totally true. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Dude, seriously, that's a message the world needs.
Yeah, exactly. I think Bill and Ted was very haiku-ish.
Yeah, right.
Back in the day, it seemed like it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? Maybe they should have showed it to Putin and say, "Hey, dude, just be excellent to each other.
Excellent
and party on, dude." And then it's like, what have I been doing all this time?
Right.
It's like,
we'll make Bill and Ted the UN ambassadors.
Exactly.
To
I'm
Russia.
such a dick.
Oh man, yeah. If we could just send the phone booth.
Yes, exactly.
A phone booth.
Hey man, how about not invading Ukraine? What? Oh yeah.
You're like, what is phone booth?
I'm such a dick. I'm sorry. All right, man, just be excellent. I will, and then like that's the solving the
Dude,
whole thing.
I'm just stuck on the Bill and Ted traveled through time in a phone booth.
Exactly, which is another thing that from the past that the future didn't bring with it.
Correct.
It's pretty amazing how that works. I think that's what's interesting about our generation, which we're Gen Xers, guys. And Ryan and I are both young Gen Xers. We're just like 5 years from the cutoff.
On the edge.
We're 5 years cut off being from millennials. We're almost millennials, but we're like young Gen Xers. But we're like last generation who have grown up without the internet.
Yeah,
we're the last one, and then by the time we were late teenagers, the internet existed and video game, everything that's kind of what we think of as now was like our late teens, early 20s.
Are we evil or divine? Yeah. We're the last in line.
Yeah, that's true. Only Dio knows the answer to that. And
yes,
and he ain't talking.
That's right.
But that being said, that's an interesting thing. It's probably very similar to someone in the 19th century, before like electrification of the entire country and phones. They grew up, like someone in the 1700s would have grown up. It's kind of a similar thing, and then it just changed in between like 1890 and like 1910. Like everything changed. You know what I mean? And then we kind of were at the forefront of that next group. That everything changed from 2000 to 2010. Like the world, the iPhone came out, music went. Basically, music industry went away. Internet became the main focus of everything. That all happened when we were in our 20s.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was happening that fast when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah, I mean, by the time when we were teenagers, it didn't exist. When we were in our mid-20s, it totally existed.
Right.
It was like that quick. We're we're like a pivot generation where things pivoted. So everyone who's a little bit younger than us will never know a world without it, and the people older than us are even more cranky about it than we are.
Hey, at least we got some skills.
That's true. Yeah, we kind of lived in both worlds. You know what I mean?
Here we are podcasting.
It's true.
I'm proud of us.
Doing the internet thing and all that stuff. Hopefully you guys are proud of us too. I'm sure I have a way of knowing that, so I'll find a way.
Well, hey,
everyone, just wave your hands really quick. Let me see. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate this support. That's awesome.
Yep.
So let's get into more guitar-specific way things have changed. Now, the biggest thing I would say is, let's start with amps, is that the amps have kind of gone away. That isn't really a thing anymore. Like the idea of when I was a kid, and I'm sure it's the same for you, like having a big 100-watt half stack or full stack was the dream. That's like the real pro rig, is of a 100-watt full stack or a half stack, let's say.
Yep.
And that's like a joke now. Like, why would you need that? There's nobody in the world who's really very few people are in the market for a full stack 100-watt.
Yeah, I've got a half stack on one side of the room that's a really nice lamp stand.
Yeah, trust me, if you've ever seen my Instagram, you can see a lot of my gear up there too, and I got like tons of racks and heads and cabinets. I got tons of cabinets. You know what I mean? I got like 4 or 6 cabs in my studio or something like that, and so I've got like amps galore, and I love amps. I'll always have amps. I think amps rock. They're awesome. But like even when I go out and play, it's like I'll bring like a 212 with a 30-watt head. Because like, why do you need a full thing? You just need that. And then I'm still kind of clinging on. I still have amps cabinets that people have to mic.
Yeah.
But like, most people just show up. They have like a box, whether it be a Fractal or they can have like even a floor, like a Line 6 Pod Pro. This is a floor unit kind of thing.
Or a Helix or
like
a neural DSP Quad Cortex.
Totally. Or they'll have like the Camper, that kind of thing. They'll have a little box somewhere and they'll just plug it straight in, and then all their stuff's right there. It sounds great.
It totally blows my mind.
I can't judge them for it. I mean, that maybe works. It's simple. It's less to deal with. It makes sense that you'd want to do it, but
yeah,
part of me just feels so sad that, like, you know, even when a band that's got, you know, playing a big stage or something, they'll have like a big stack of, you know, wall Marshalls or whatever, and I know that none of those are plugged in.
Well, yeah, a lot of those 412 cabs are just
probably
dummies.
all of them.
Probably all of
dummies.
them. Yeah, no kidding. Huh?
And then there's just like backstage, there's a little box like this size plugged into an DI. That's basically it. That's their rig. It's up to the pedal board, and they're just switching through MIDI on the pedal board.
Yeah, I feel like plugging into a DI, that was for bass players.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we've all become what they say in like the Joker thing: live long enough to become the bass player.
That's right.
You either die the lead player or live long enough to become the bass player. It's
chilling.
It's a fate.
No. I thought I was the horror guy.
No, I'm only dystopian kind of thoughts. I can have those.
Okay, you're more like Mad Max.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinda, yeah.
But anyway, that's a big change. I mean, how do you feel like it's? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of agnostic about it because I just realize that's how it is. It makes sense why you would use just a plug-in.
Yeah, I just there's like the romance of making tubes cook and you know, a good tube amplifier is a musical instrument just like your guitar is.
Yep, and you can hear the difference when you're recording, whether you're playing it straight into even it was great. We used the DSP stuff on our record, and that's great. And I bet my last Scott Allen Project record, I did live amps, used my PVs and some Marshalls and stuff like that, and I can hear the difference. There's like a ferocity that a live amp has. There's something about the way it interacts with the microphone, whether it be like a 57 or a condenser or something like that, and the way that goes, and then when it hits the preamp and then goes into the you know, DAW, there's something about a live amp that they still don't have quite there. I mean, as good as they are, the neural DSP stuff's great. It sounds killer.
The impulse responses, because it was always the cabinet that was my
and the mic to a degree, because the mic like copies are not quite there. Like a 57 mic copy does not really sound just like a 57. 57 being an Shure SM57 mic. Which is the standard guitar cabinet mic, you know, that people have been using forever. Van Halen one was recorded with the 57.
Yeah, classic stuff.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's typical. I know it's going to get there. I know that it's great now. I mean, the difference is so minute between like a live amp and a neural DSP for sure. But it'll get to the point where it's completely indecipherable. You wouldn't be able to tell it all. We're close. We're like within a couple of years of that being the case. But there's something about the romance. You're right, like smelling the tubes being hot in the room with you and stuff like that. You know,
totally.
Playing, and it just feels like the more interactive. You know what I mean?
Well, I used to, I've got this old Marshall 412 cab that I've had for 25 years. A 1960B. It's a straight, not a slant.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just attached to that for a couple decades. You know, and then about 10 years ago, I switched to just a 112 combo, a 60-watt 112 combo. Mm-hmm. And that to me was a huge step.
Yeah.
Because I believed in the sound of a closed back straight 412. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, but then you realize, okay, it's only one microphone going on that thing. It's going on one of the speakers, so why do you need to carry a 100-pound cab?
Right.
You know, it's the same thing happened to me. I got a 212 PV cab with a 25-watt mini. It's a tube head still, but it's like, you know, mini amp, and it sounds like no difference at all when you play live. It's exactly the same. They're not, because if you're playing with a 100-watt head, they're going to have you put it on 3 anyway in a club.
Yeah, well, I always run mine at 50, but for like tonal reasons.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though. Yeah. They're not going to they don't want your stage volume. You know what I mean? They want you to keep it controlled. So having a smaller amp that doesn't have a ton of stage, I mean, it's still plenty loud, but it's not like it's like crazy volume. It's way easier for the sound person, the front of house person to control.
There's just a certain thump that a 412, like the resonance of the cabinet.
They're not wrong.
Right?
And I'm so like thinking, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy I'll buy some Jensens and some old Celestion greenbacks, and I'm going to put them in like an X configuration on my cabinet. But that's why it's like, what am I doing? I'm going to spend like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to have something that makes no difference to my tone live at all.
And maybe you'll never really.
What it really comes down to is it makes me happy to look at that cabinet and say, there's the Jensens, and then there's the 2 greenbacks.
It might be an hour of jamming in your studio. And after that,
exactly.
You know, then you'd have to go back to doing something. You know,
that's making money.
Right.
But it's one of those things that's just the romance that is so like visceral, and then I really feel a kinship. There's this whole like cadre of people who are like, you know, in their mid 40s, late 40s, mid 50s. Who are like working professionals, like whether it be doctors, lawyers, web designers, the IT people, whatever it might be, that they're really passionate about guitar gear. Thank God, that's what's keeping the boutique guitar gear manufacturers going, is that group. But and that, you know, I can feel where they're coming from. Although I always tell people like that, like, there's not any pro musicians I know who use the gear you use. I mean, unless they're like Neil Sean or something who's got like all that stuff that,
Well, and can pay his road crew to haul it around for him.
Exactly.
Right.
Like most pro musicians use just really good, reliable stuff that's not crazy expensive because it's a tool.
Well, reliability, that's where I still have this weird feeling about, because a lot of, the Quad Cortex comes in a stomp box form factor. The Line 6 Helix, same thing. I'd feel better if the foot switch were a separate thing.
Yeah.
And then the brain. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Fractal, that's how that is, right?
That's definitely, it's all controlled MIDI. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I don't want, like, the notion that the brain that's producing my tone is close to where I'm stepping.
Yeah. Well, that's right under where you're stepping.
Yeah, that makes me feel maybe it's irrational, but that makes me feel uneasy.
It doesn't seem wise. It doesn't. But I'm sure they thought about that. I mean, they know that they're designing something that people are going to play live and step on. And when you're playing live, you can't be gentle about the crap.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, it's like so. I don't know. It's interesting. I think that's the world we're going towards. Though it's really, you can't fight the waves. Like when the ocean currents come in, you got to roll with it. You know what I mean? And
hey, and to be fair, Neural DSP is what I have the personal experience with. I mean, I've sold other manufacturers stuff, but I mean, I'm 20 years removed from selling things retail.
I remember doing a whole bunch of clinics where I just used a Line 6 pod plugged into a DI. So that was, I got no room to stand. I've done live performances in clinics doing that kind of thing. It's just convenience of it. You can't beat it. And that was like an old school. I'm sure it sounded like crap by today's standards.
Like the old red kidney bean.
Yeah, the kidney bean one. Yeah, that's back in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, the JHS Pedals guy has a YouTube channel where he talks all about the Line 6 pod.
Isn't that amazing? We're getting this world now where we have like vintage, like digital gear.
Yeah,
like
vintage digital model. I remember when the Roland VG8 came out.
Well, even that, like going into like things like delays, like waxing philosophical about like the MPX 100 lexicons and stuff like that. And,
the Jam Man
exactly.
was finally
PCM 70s, PCM 80 reverbs and stuff like that. It's like
the Eventide Ultra Harmonizer. That was the thing, and it cost thousands of dollars back in the day.
TC-2290s and stuff like that. That's something that's now a thing. That's like a fetish item that people are like lusting after. They're trying to go find like old Rockman.
The Schultz Rockman, or the Rackmount Rockman,
or even like a Rocktron Chameleon or Prophecies, like a big time sought after
I had
thing.
A Chameleon, man. I wish I still had it now.
The Prophecies, like the tube one, that was really cool. So I mean, they had a bunch of cool. That's all like late 90s,
and the Voodoo Valve,
late 80s, early 90s kind of stuff. MP1s, ADAs.
Yeah, the ADA that was a great. The Marshall JMP one.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Was killer.
Well, Def Leppard toured with that for years. Like, JMP was like what Vivian Campbell and Phil Collins used for years. Like
dude,
10,
those sounded so awesome.
That's something that people are now starting to get hip to, is like the kind of vintage digital stuff, which is kind of crazy to think vintage digital, because everyone, I think our definition of what vintage is needs to start changing with the times. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, true.
True. Vintage does not mean a Vox Wah into an AC30 with like a Gretsch anymore.
Well, imagine if you had an original 84 or 85 Kramer Beretta.
Oh hell yeah, dude. Or like an old school, like original ESP, like Japanese made ESP sort of thing, back in the day. And, the early Bogner amplifiers, the early Soldano amplifiers, those things but you can't afford those things, man. They're so, have you ever found like an early Soldano with the serial number? That's
yikes, right?
My God, that's going to be like $40,000.
It's like a portfolio piece of gear.
That's something you just put in a like vault somewhere and you just hold on to it and let it appreciate. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is crazy, But anyway, I think that's interesting. Now, I think that on the guitar front, I feel like we've kind of gone evolution on steroids a little bit, because we went through a flirtation for a good long while with 7 and 8 string guitars, and then even 9 string guitars, and then the fan frets, multi-scale thing, which still exists. It's not like it doesn't exist, but
there's some manufacturers out there. Well, once the patent ran out, because I mean it's been less than 10 years since the patent on the fan fret design.
Ibanez is doing fan frets now too on some of their
Kiesel's
models.
Doing
everybody is, and then I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like 9-string guitars. I use a 7-string on our record. I use a 7-string a lot on my solo records. I use a 7-string a lot. I like 7-string guitars mainly because it sounds like a guitar still, though. If you start going to 8, 9 strings, you're starting to get very much in the bass range, and it's like it's impossible to make that sound tight. And yes, the multi-scale helps, but then you're really getting to the spot where the chord harmony gets too low to really be determined anymore, and it's
you're getting into kind of Chapman stick territory. Guys like Tosin Abasi, they're tapping bass lines while their fretting hand is playing melodies and chords and stuff,
which is cool. That's cool, but I mean,
different thing, a very specialized.
That really is
niche-y thing.
That got big for a little while, and then it feels to me like that's sort of fading away. But then one thing that isn't fading away is the whole Strandberg, headless guitar that's not a traditional shape thing.
I think those are cool.
I got to tell you, I hate them.
Really?
It just doesn't, there's nothing about that looks cool to me. It really, I mean, that's just because I'm a super strat guy, man. What looks cool to me is a super strat.
Yeah, well, I agreed.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it was Thomas McRocklin was talking about his deal with Kiesel.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, he said, look, man, this headless guitar, and it's a Strat body. It's just a headless Strat body.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of the Vito Bratta guitar a little bit.
Yeah, like the Steinbergers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He just said, look.
Or Mark Diglio guitar. Mark Diglio played a guitar like that too. Mark Diglio from XYZ.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Sorry, that's a side note though.
Isn't there like a Ted Pulley connection there too? I think Jeff Northrop plays with both of those guys.
I don't know.
Has. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like 6 degrees separate of Kevin Bacon.
You know this one, the other person knows that person,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So McRocklin's point was he's filming so many videos and he's doing so much online teaching.
Mm-hmm.
The headless guitar is just compact and it just makes a lot of sense for that.
Sure. There's an aesthetic to it that just doesn't appeal to me. That's just my opinion. It doesn't matter.
I like a good looking headstock.
Yep. I think, headstocks are valuable. There's actually tone there too. You're actually losing some resonance when you start getting rid of stuff like that, and I don't know. And I don't know. I'm old when it comes to that stuff. It doesn't look like it's aimed at me too much. It's probably very similar to the way someone in like the 70s felt like when Van Halen came out and he's playing a Strat with a Floyd Rose or whatever. It's like, it's just not aimed at me. That's just new generation stuff.
I will say the thing I like, because before, if you were playing a Steinberg, you had to have double ball end strings.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me off of that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't like the brand that's making the double ball end strings, then stuck. I'm not going to play crappy strings.
Although the trans trim idea was cool. I have to say that's a really cool idea.
The trans trim being the double ball end string thing.
Yeah, well, also the trans trim, the big advantage to that, if you look at Floyd Rose and let's say you're holding a chord and you're diving it, the strings aren't going to all dive at the same strength. So like the trans trim allowed you to actually take chords and dive them in tune. It's kind of similar to what you do with the whammy pedal. You know what I mean? But so that's what Van Halen did on like Summer Nights and Get Up and stuff. That was pretty groundbreaking when he was doing that stuff.
Sounds very Evertune, but trims.
Yeah, that was from '85 or something when that came out, the trans trim. And so that was a pretty cool thing. But that's a neat trick. And Van Halen used it in a handful of songs that did it really interestingly.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard anyone else doing that though. It was kind of like it was just his thing.
It's also a neat trick with a Floyd to hit multiple notes with harmonics and then dump the bar and then they go out of tune at different rates and you get all the dissonance.
No, it's cool either way. That's cool. I mean, I'm a Floyd Rose guy full
I know.
on, that. So
I'm just trying to think of a cool thing to do without the trans trim.
But I think that's something I didn't see going. I mean, I'm glad I'd rather have something that's super high tech and futuristic than like a Jag Stang or something like that.
Oh, well, a Jag Stang is like if you use a
Screamer into like a Fender Twin or something. I'd rather that.
Dude, if I were living in a cardboard box, then the Jazz Stang or Jag Stang is what. That's the guitar.
Don't ever need to see another Les Paul Jr. again. No, thank you. You know what I mean?
No, pass.
Yeah, exactly. So
hard pass.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You and I have so much PTSD from the 90s.
We do. It's just like it's a common theme of our podcast.
It's exactly true. I was actually just trying to explain this to a student of mine the other day. It's like, you have no idea, man. You have no idea what I've seen.
You weren't there, man. I was there.
You don't know what I've seen. So, I don't know. It's funny because a lot of kids now, if you talk to someone who's like under 20 or something, they think of the 80s gods as like, those guys are like, Guns N' Roses have always been huge. Metallica's always like, no, there was a time when it wasn't cool to be Guns N' Roses. There was a time for 10, 15 years where that wasn't cool to be Guns N' Roses. There was
a time when Guns N' Roses released Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
That's true. Well, that was fine. There's not. It's such a letdown from.
Appetite was such a monstrous
what's
album.
funny is that like when they did Lies, everyone kind of gave him a pass. Like, it's just a little EP to buy some time for the next album, whatever, it's fine. And then when the next one out, like they had a couple of good songs and the singles were good, but then there's nothing. It was like, there was a very shallow album. There wasn't like very deep cuts in that album at all. You know what I mean?
So, I think another theme that we're kind of dancing around here today is that whatever it is a person's into, there's always the real dope and then there's what most people like. Right?
And I think that's very subjective. Obviously, we have to acknowledge that because everyone's got their idea of what the right thing is and what isn't. But
there's the stuff that the real enthusiasts like know is the good stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the stuff that's popular. Like, so, MySpace was great for creatives and musicians, and musicians. Like that was
comedians
the real
too.
Comedians, sure. That was the real dope. Now and then there's Facebook,
and that makes you feel like a real dope.
Right.
Aha. Turned that one around.
Wah, wah, wah.
That wasn't an obvious joke at all.
But, Appetite for Destruction, like that, like Mr. Brownstone and You're Fucking Crazy, like that's the real dope.
Yeah.
Not Sweet Child of Mine. If Sweet Child of Mine's what you're fired up about, just listen to something else.
Or Rocket Queen. That's a cool song.
Rocket Queen's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I get you. I think that the other thing too, this is the last thing I'm going to mention about the horribleness of the current is that the investment of music. I think when we were kids, music was so important. Radio, buying albums, waiting for album releases, seeing bands play live, whether it be local bands going to club shows or going to big shows. That was such a big part of our life and our culture back in those days. It was co-equal with like movies and television shows. It was like now there's a hierarchy. Now it's so devalued. It's like no one buys music. It's like a fetish thing to go buy a vinyl to put it on. You just do it once to show off to your friends that you like vinyl.
It's a hobbyist.
Yeah,
very niche hobbyist thing. Well, I mean, it's. Although it's widespread enough for some people to sell vinyl,
it definitely is, and there are some people who are genuinely enthusiasts about vinyl, and there are some people who buy it just to say, "Hey, look at my vinyl," which is typical.
Yeah. And the people who buy it to say, "Look at my vinyl," at least they're enabling. They're helping the people who are for sure.
It is a net positive. I'll give you that. It's a net positive.
There we go.
But I think the investment in music is the challenge. Is finding that way to like have people like be fired up about music as much as they're fired up about, say, a movie release or seeing a sports team or something like that. You know what I mean? It should be like that level. I think that's something that surprises me about where we are now is that music is so not as important as those other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely the arena acts as rock acts.
Yeah, the only ones that are still doing it are the same ones we grew up with.
Right.
That's the only ones who can still do arenas. You know what I mean? And that's got a shelf life that's like that clock is ticking.
I wonder what Avenged Sevenfold, like once they're finally fully avenged.
Who knows when that's going to happen?
Well, maybe never. I don't know. But imagine in 15 or 20 years when those guys. I mean, I'll be dead by then. But
were you planning that already?
Guys, what's that?
You're going to die in 15 years, really?
15 or 20.
Oh, God.
Something like that.
Aim higher, Ryan. Come on, you got this. You got to put out more records, dude.
Hey, who knows? We might be on X Aegis' 10th album.
Yeah, 15 years from now, we have to really get on it, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, certainly the second album is going to go faster than the first.
That's true.
Production-wise.
Well, hopefully, with any luck, a pandemic won't hit right in the middle. So
true.
Chances of that happening, I got to imagine, are like less than 50.
And by then, someone will probably release the Twitter handle. So this should probably be a good time to make some announcements. Well, so first of all, thanks to everybody listening for checking out episode 30 of Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan.
Yippee, yeah.
You
know what's next? 31.
Damn straight.
That's right.
That's right. Right in between 30 and 32.
Yeah, exactly. Special.
That's a chromatic notion. So we've got some socials going up.
Yeah, we just right now we've got our Twitter handle for our band, which is twitter.com/xaegisband. And that's going to be where you'll go to find anything about what Ryan and I are doing or anything about the record release. We'll definitely have podcast information on there as well. So, and the X Aegis official website should be up here in the next week or two, which who knows when you're listening to this. So it'll probably happened either a really long time ago or it's still going to happen. I don't know. It depends on when you're listening to this. And that'll be there too. So the band's Twitter is twitter.com/xaegisband. So.
Nice.
And thank you so much for listening, guys. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast, whatever platform you like. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, that was just me. Brian doesn't care.
I'm just so overcome with emotion over here. I'm just overwhelmed with appreciation.
Okay.
So
me too. All right.
You guys rock.
Everybody, peace. Have a good one.
Peace.